Hi guys, it's your friendly neighborhood headbanger here with our newest baby Ella. Say hi, Ella. Hi. And Ella is a sweetheart, and she came over here just as I started filming. So I thought I should introduce her to you guys. She is such a sweetheart. But anyway, I'm going to set her down now, and hopefully she will stay out of things. She's our newest kitten, and she is all kitten. She's all about being the kitty type behavior. Anyway, this week was National Eating Disorder Awareness Week, and I was not aware of that until last night when I was watching a YouTube video that another person did about it. And I thought, oh, okay, I've been saying I'm going to make this video. This would be a good week to do it. It's over tomorrow, the 28th, so I thought I'd better get to it. And this is not going to be an easy video for me to make, so you guys are going to have to put up with me a little bit. There may be some pauses. I don't think there'll be tears because I've been talking about this long enough now that there aren't generally tears, but it does make me uncomfortable sometimes to talk about it. I was kind of shaken as I was putting my makeup on. So if I don't look completely put together, then that's probably why. I'm going to have to put my old lady glasses on because, oh, and let me say this. If you're a teenager, a young adult, or you're a parent with a teenager, particularly a girl, then if you think that this would help them, then you can go get them and have them watch, or you can have them watch it later. If one person was stopped from doing this, then it would be just 10 times worth it. All right, here we go. Put my old lady glasses on. And I'm going to read to you some eating disorder facts. And then after I get done with those facts, I'm going to tell you my experience with an eating disorder. Okay. There are four main types of eating disorders. There are technically five, but one of them is kind of esoteric, so we're going to go with four. Anorexia nervosa, bulimia nervosa, binge eating disorder, and eating disorder not otherwise specified / restrictive eating disorder. And of course, anorexia is where you severely restrict calorie intake, and anorexics very commonly purge as well. They are not considered bulimic because bulimics do not calorie restrict. So with bulimia, there is a binging, and a purging, eating large amounts of calories and then getting rid of it. Binge eating disorder is binging, eating large amounts of calories, almost out of control, which basically all binging is, and then not getting rid of it afterwards, but feeling intense feelings of guilt or shame, but not feeling like they can stop. Restrictive eating is when calories are restricted, but they are restricted with a certain type of food. For example, a person with a restrictive eating disorder may not consume any carbs, and I mean any, or they won't consume any fat whatsoever, or whatever. They just completely restrict themselves from a certain type of food, and they have no health reason to do so. So those are your four main types. Now, let's hear about some facts about eating disorders in general and specifically. At this point, about 30 million people in the United States have an eating disorder. That's astounding. Well, I say in the United States, that might be worldwide, but it wouldn't surprise me to know that it's in the United States because we are a fashion / appearance society that is very important to us as a society. 95% of people develop their eating disorder between the ages of 12 and 25. And that was me. I developed mine at about 17. So, and it's happening earlier and earlier nowadays as we have more and more access to the World Wide Web and the internet. Girls are seeing more and more the ideal body type that they think they should be, and it's starting earlier. Girls as young as 9 have been known to be on diets. Number 3, eating disorders have the highest death rate of any mental illness. Any. You know, think about that for a minute. The highest death rate of any mental illness. That involves both suicide and death caused by health issues from the eating disorder. Eating disorders transcend gender, race, ethnicity, and socioeconomic factors. There are eating disorders in every strata of society. It is across the board. There are considerably more women who fall victim to eating disorders than men, but there are men who have eating disorders, and they often go undetected just because we don't think that men should have eating disorders. So, you know, bear that in mind, that if you see an emaciated young man, it could be very possible that he is suffering from some type of disordered eating. Genetics, environment, and personality all contribute to being at risk for an eating disorder. Eating disorders sometimes run in the family. If you live in a high pressure environment, a driven to succeed environment, or if you are an overachiever, you feel like you're constantly in a race against yourself to be the best, these all could contribute to having an eating disorder or being at risk to develop one. Having an eating disorder poses several health issues. Malnutrition from developing an eating disorder can cause low or abnormal heart rate due to lack of potassium or sodium. Mood changes such as irritability and depression. Body issues with digesting food. In other words, you may deal with bloating, pain, irritable bowel disease, constipation, all kinds of things where your body just doesn't know what to do with food in order to digest it because it's been deprived of it for so long. For women, you might possibly, or girls, you might possibly stop having your period. You might skip periods for several months. Your bones will weaken. You might develop osteoporosis at a very young age. You might suffer from anemia or a poor immune response. So anemia or being susceptible to getting sicker more often and having a more serious illness because your immune response is weakened. It's not being fed the way it needs to be. You might have brittle hair and nails. Many people who suffer from an eating disorder suffer from dehydration, and your hair and nails will suffer for it. You might have a low blood pressure, and you might deal with significant fatigue. You might, especially if you're bulimic, suffer from tooth decay and tooth loss. I try not to smile very widely, but I figure for this video you can see the deal. And as I alluded to earlier, severe dehydration. And dehydration has so many things that come along with it, so much more than just the brittle hair and the brittle nails. I mean, we are literally talking about the loss of electrolytes that could affect your health to the point of death. So, many people who have an eating disorder also have a comorbid mental illness, such as depression, anxiety, OCD, and bipolar 1 and 2. These two just tend to go hand in hand. From people who have anorexia nervosa, about 56% of those people have a comorbid mental illness. From bulimia nervosa, wow, let's just say bulimia, shall we? Up to 94.5% of bulimics have a comorbid mental illness. And binge eating disorder, 79% have a comorbid mental illness. So eating disorders are so much more than what you eat or what you don't eat. They are a mental illness. They are listed in the DSM, and they've been in the DSM for quite some time, and that is the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual, which basically lists mental disorders. And all eating disorders that have been classified are in the DSM. Let's see. This is a really, really scary statistic. Up to 20% of people with untreated chronic anorexia will die. They will either commit suicide or their heart will give out. The most common way of dying from anorexia is for your heart to give out, either because you have starved it of the electrolytes it needs to beat, or if you're in recovery and you have begun gaining weight and your heart just is not able to take the strain. So it's not a good thing. And of course, suicide is always a risk for people with an eating disorder, because they either feel that they are not getting thin enough, or that they feel they were being pressured to gain weight, or they feel like they just can't go on anymore in the state that they're in. Research that I did from the National Institute of Mental Health said that 1 person per hour dies from an eating disorder. Wow. All right. Gaining weight or losing weight, if you have a binge eating disorder, is not a cure for an eating disorder. It might save your life, but it's not the cure. And if you don't follow up eating disorder treatment, if you don't follow up the physical treatment for an eating disorder with addressing the mental illness behind it, you will find that person will relapse, and possibly relapse hard. With treatment, 60% of people with an eating disorder will make a full recovery. That's somewhat promising, but it's not a great statistic. I mean, it's slightly over half of people with an eating disorder will make a full recovery. And full recovery is kind of an odd statement there, because people who are in recovery from an eating disorder will have to be in recovery from it for the rest of their life. It's like being in recovery from a substance, because there is a very addictive quality to eating disorders. It may not, addiction may not be the reason you develop the disorder, but you become addicted to the patterns that you developed. The patterns of eating, the patterns of purging, the patterns of binging, they all become things that you become addicted to, that your body automatically goes to when it feels as if it needs some sort of defense system. Only 1 in 10 people with an eating disorder will ever get treatment, and that's usually because they are anorexics and they are emaciated and they look sick. Those people tend to get treatment for their disorder. Bulimics are usually near or slightly under their ideal weight, so they don't really stand out. And people with binge eating disorder, people just think they're obese. They just think that they don't care. They're not taking any kind of action to be healthy, and they're just treated as obese or morbidly obese, and no one thinks that they might have an eating disorder. So only 1 in 10 ever receives treatment. 13% of women over the age of 50 have symptoms of an eating disorder. So if you think that this is something that goes away when you get older, that's not necessarily true. These patterns are hardwired, and after so long a time, and they don't just go away. And here is my other mini panther, Casey, trying to help me out. He's our old man. He's 11, but he's a good boy, and he's helping me by rubbing his face on my notes. All right, eating disorders, and this is amazing given their prevalence. Especially among adolescents, children basically. Eating disorders are the least funded and researched mental illness. They get the least funding for research. Depression, schizophrenia, bipolar, all of these things get a pretty good amount of funding and research, anxiety. But eating disorders are the least funded for research of the mental illnesses. And number 13, I haven't been enumerating them, but this is number 13. And this is the most important one. You do not have to be a certain weight, overweight, underweight, whatever, to have an eating disorder. Eating disorders are a mental illness. They don't care what weight you are. We tend to think of eating disorders in terms of severe anorexia. Even anorexics don't have to be emaciated. I've seen people with anorexia who were not, emaciated. I've seen people with anorexia who were. But you don't necessarily have to be emaciated to have anorexia. You don't necessarily have to look underweight to have bulimia. And you don't necessarily have to be 500 pounds to have binge eating disorder. Eating disorders are a mental illness. They are a state of mind. They are not a number on a scale. It's very, very, very important to remember this. I have a meme on my phone that says, yes, I have an eating disorder. No, I'm not skinny. So those are some facts about eating disorders. They are sobering, I hope, to you guys. And now I'm going to tell you a little bit about my experience with an eating disorder. People develop eating disorders for a variety of reasons. It might be a physical or emotional trauma. It might be their personality or personality traits they have. And that was the case with me. I did not suffer any emotional or physical trauma, thank God. But I did have a very particular mindset about what made me a worthwhile person. When I was about 4, I stood by the screen door in my kitchen, and I said my ABCs backwards. And everyone thought that was just the coolest thing ever, and they were like, "Oh, Terry, that's so awesome!" And I thought, "Hey, I got a lot of really good, positive, reaction out of this. I like this. I like this feeling." And thus, I developed my first addiction, which was to approval. And I haven't beaten it yet. Later on, I would start playing the piano, and I apparently had somewhat of a talent for that. People were like, "Oh, that's so awesome. You play the piano so well." And I was like, yes, another feather in my cap. Keep going. I made good grades in school. Awesome. Keep going. It was very, very important to me that I keep all the balls up in the air, that I be funny and witty and make good grades and play the piano well, because all of those things, if I did well at them and people reacted to them in a positive way, then I must be a worthwhile person. They wouldn't react that way if I wasn't a good person and I wasn't a worthwhile person. And for a while, that worked really well until we got to middle school. And something strange happens to some kids in middle school. It doesn't happen to every kid, but it does happen to quite a few, and that is that they become the spawn of Satan. I don't know if it is hormones. I don't know if it's such a concern to fit in, look a certain way, have certain things, whatever. Even back in my day, before the World Wide Web and before you could see what all the trends were, there were still trends. There were still, we still had TVs, and, we still saw what, the people on TV shows were wearing, and that was the trendy thing. And so you want to look like that. And we still saw people on TV that looked a certain way. Supermodels, Cindy Crawford, you just didn't need the World Wide Web for that. You didn't need the internet. We saw it on TV. And I remember when I was in 5th grade, because my middle school started in 5th grade, we were standing in line to get a drink of water after recess, and I loved recess. I played hard. I ran. I was a chubby kid. I was not a morbidly obese kid. But I did enjoy playing and running and doing all the things. But we were waiting in line to get a drink of water, and someone referred to me as a beached whale. That memory is seared in my brain. I will never forget it. And I just remember thinking, oh, oh my gosh, no one has ever referred to me in the way. I mean, I knew I was overweight. I could look at other kids and see that, but it didn't really matter to me because I went and did all the things they did. I wasn't unhealthy. I was just carrying a little extra weight. And it freaked me out because I thought, this is something I'm not doing well. This is something I'm not achieving. And it kind of made me a little freaked out, but I didn't know what to do. 10-year-old, 11-year-old Terry did not know what to do with that other than just be freaked out. The next year, I joined band, and that was an incredibly good thing because band, I had friends in band, lifelong friends that I still keep up with, and band did not really care how much I weighed. They just wanted me to be able to play my instrument, and I was good at that. That was another thing that I was good at, was playing clarinet. And not as good as piano, but I didn't like clarinet as well as I liked piano, so that was okay. But, good enough to stay in the top chairs of my clarinet section and hang out with the top chairs of other sections. And I felt pretty good about that. I felt good about myself. I still took some ribbing about my weight. And so by the time I got to high school, that was the one thing I hadn't fixed yet. Everything else was going very well. Still making good grades, still playing the piano, still making people laugh, still, in band doing well there. I just needed to fix this weight thing, and I really didn't know how. My junior year, I began to lose weight. I wasn't even trying. I don't know if I was getting rid of baby fat. I don't know if all the years of marching out in the 100-degree weather on asphalt was, finally paying off. I don't know. But I started to lose weight, and people started to tell me how good I looked. If you know someone has an eating disorder and they have either gained weight to look better or have lost weight to look better, please don't tell them how good they look, because that's a challenge. That is a challenge to look better, because that's the kind of personality often that an eating disordered person has. Perfectionism. Perfectionism is not a trait, it's a disorder. I'll say it again. Perfectionism is not a trait, it is a disorder. I have never known a person that perfectionism worked well for them. They're always stressed, they're always anxious, they're always wondering when the other shoe is going to drop, and they're always going all the time. I remember reading some of my high school journals, and one of the things I said was, I run and I run and I run as fast as I can, and I never reach the finish line because someone keeps moving it. I just kept going, trying to look as good as I could and be as entertaining as I could while running the race. And apparently I thought that if I ran the race at a little bit lower weight, that would be good. My senior year, I got into a relationship with a guy who was on the swim team. So not an ounce of fat on this guy's body, like none. And I felt as if I really needed to match up to that. And even though I'd already lost some weight, I started doing restricting, which is how a lot of bulimics start in their eating disorder journey. And I never did really eat breakfast. So I didn't eat breakfast, and I began throwing away my lunch. I took lunch. I began throwing away my lunch and eating and drinking the Diet Coke, which of course had no calories in it. And then that afternoon before band practice, I would drink a Coke with sugar in it so I would have enough energy to get through band practice. And then that evening, I would eat a little over a half of my dinner. And just say, it was hot marching outside, I'm just really not all that hungry. Or I would eat enough that nobody questioned it, and, that was that. I did that for a while, and I, obviously lost some weight, and, I think my mom just thought that all the marching that I was doing in the band was doing that. And my boyfriend came up behind me, and he put his hands on the part of your waist that goes in, like the hourglass part. And I did have pretty much an hourglass figure at that point. You're supposed to have your hips and your chest are supposed to be the same measurement, and your waist is 10 inches less than that. And I literally had that with 1 extra inch on the hips. But, I had an hourglass figure, and he went and he put his hands on my waist and he said, "I love your curves. Don't ever change." And I'm like, challenge accepted. Because I was in this relationship with him. I had just gotten into the school that I wanted to get into. I was doing well in my head, in my disordered eating brain. All of the good things that were happening to me were because I had lost weight. That was the key to keeping everything going, to keeping all the balls in the air. It had to do with my weight and how good I looked. And that was just another performance, another striving for perfection. It was another way for me to perform. And since I had been so good at performing, I had to be good at this too. I had to be good at losing weight. I could not be bad at anything. If I were bad at something, then that meant that I was not worthwhile. So gotta keep performing. That was in my head. Gotta keep performing. So after Christmas break, my senior year, or maybe it was during Christmas break, I don't remember. It was in January, I know that. My mom had made spaghetti for dinner, and it did not sit particularly well with me. I ate dinner because I usually did eat dinner, and I got sick. I threw up. And it occurred to me that I had, for the most part, enjoyed that and been able to eat it, but I didn't gain any weight from it because I got rid of it. And then I thought, okay, there you go. I can eat whatever I want. I just have to get rid of it. And that became what I did my entire second half of my senior year. And it got to the point where my mom noticed that there was kind of a big weight loss thing happening. And she sent me to the doctor. And the doctor said, what's going on here? And I said, I'm so stressed. I'm so stressed about, SATs and ACTs and getting into the college of my choice and da 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 da. And he bought it hook, line, and sinker and did not say anything more about it. But at my graduation ceremony, my mom's cousin's husband said, "Has Terry been sick? She's lost a lot of weight." And mom said, "Well, no, I don't think so." She said, "We went to the doctor and the doctor said it was just stress. When she starts King next year, she'll be fine. It'll be the college I went to. She'll be okay." So I spent the entire summer, and to be very honest with you, the freshman and sophomore years of college, hardcore bulimia, hardcore. Everyone who has an eating disorder has a rule book, and the rule book is do's and don'ts and how to successfully do your disorder, and good foods and bad foods and why they're good and why they're bad. And I've said before that if you were to publish it, it would be larger than War and Peace, and everybody's edition of this rule book would be different. It would be completely different. There are some foods that you don't eat because they're just bad. There are other foods you don't eat because they're hard to throw up. There are other, it's just insane. And I'm not going to give you like tips on how to do this, on how to throw up or that kind of thing. Suffice to say that I had all kinds of ways to make it easier or to avoid foods that would have made it hard. And I also, about this time, not only was I purging and binging some, but I was also restricting and purging. So I had kind of gone from restricting to bulimia with restricting. It is not uncommon for bulimics and anorexics to slide back and forth between the two disorders. There was a joke in the hospital when I was in the hospital for my disorder that bulimics are just failed anorexics. We just like to eat too much. But seriously, I was doing quite a bit of restricting, and I did that so much that I wound up passing out in the bathroom in college. And my friends knew that something was very wrong with me, and they encouraged me mightily to tell my parents what was going on. And before I did that, I wound up going to the hospital for what the ER doctor called a cardiac event. I don't know if that's a heart attack. I don't know what that is, but he called it a cardiac event. And the reason I had one was because I had literally no potassium in my body, like virtually just none whatsoever. And I was given potassium. I was told to eat a banana every day and drink a glass of orange juice every day, which I hate orange juice. Found out that I could stomach it if I put Diet Sprite with it. But my roommate was always going around going, "Have you had your banana? Have you had your orange juice?" And I was like, yes. So yeah, she looked after me very well. She's an awesome person. But the summer between my sophomore and junior year, my mom took me back to the doctor, and the doctor realized that I had an eating disorder, and he sent me to a psychiatrist, whose name I have repressed because I was so angry at him for putting me in the hospital. So I was put in a mental facility here in my hometown, and I stayed there for 28 days. They really did not know what to do with me. Eating disorders were virtually unknown at that point. Anorexia was known about. Bulimia was just a complete and total mystery to most people. Why would you eat food and then throw it up? You know, that just seemed, to quote my mother, why would you do that? To lose weight. But by the time I got there, I was in some bad shape. My blood pressure was about 90/50 standing up, and it was, I don't remember what it was laying down. It was 90/50 standing up, and I was about 12 pounds underweight, so about 10% underweight. Not enough to be called anorexia, but enough for them to want me to gain weight for both blood pressure reasons, hydration reasons, just a lot of reasons. And I remember when I was in the hospital, I would go to the cafeteria to eat, and they would come out with a tray for me that had 1,500 calories per day on it, or 18 or something like that. And I just wanted to hang my head in shame. I was like, I don't want anyone to know I'm eating that many calories. Oh my gosh. And I would still throw up. They had a nurse that stayed with me for an hour after I ate. I'm like, I can wait. I can wait you out, sweetie. It takes longer than that for food to digest. So, as soon as she went on to do her thing, off I went to the bathroom. No cameras in the bathroom. Obviously, you can't put cameras in a bathroom. So, there you go. There was another girl there who was anorexic, and she was my buddy, and we walked so much around the perimeter of the hospital that our walking privileges were suspended. However, we did make the staff really, really excited one night when we ordered a pizza. My anorexic friend ate one piece. I ate two and threw them up. But still, we ordered pizza, and they were very excited about it. I think recovery really came for me when I became pregnant with my daughter, because even I was not self-centered enough about achievement that I would starve my child. In fact, my child at that point was the achievement. And so I did begin to understand the concept of needing to eat to nourish my body and someone else's. And I began small steps toward recovery at that point. But it has been a hard row to hoe. It is a daily battle. It is a battle every time I put something in my mouth. And for 3 years before now, I did not have one purging episode. And then this Christmas, I did. But I think that was just a lot of, wasn't a stressful year last year at all. I worried about the virus. I worried about my family. I worried specifically about my daughter, who has some special needs. And I just ate all the things and then threw up. Now, speaking of eating all the things, I don't look thin, and I'm not thin. I am, in fact, overweight, because the bulimia has transitioned over into a binge eating disorder. I am still using food as a coping mechanism for what's going on in my life. I still feel like I need to perform. So you see how this is a lifelong thing. Once you get this hardwired, once you get this pattern of thinking in your head, it is ridiculously hard to get out of it. I know that there are people out there who are in recovery from eating disorders. I know you know what I'm talking about. I know you have an argument with yourself every time you eat something. I know you don't really want to eat 25 peppermint patties, but it's like you can't stop yourself. And then after you're done, the bulimic in you says, you can go and get rid of that. This is no harm, no foul. It's okay. But the part of you that wants to be in recovery is like, no, you can't. You can't do that. And then there's another part of you that says, well, if you know you can't do that, then why did you do that to begin with? And then binge eating disorder raises their hand and says, well, we did that because we weren't happy about something and we couldn't fix it. So we just did this because this, food is our drug. And eating disorder is our drug. Everything is our drug. Everything related to food is a drug. I wish that when I stop drinking, I don't ever have to have another alcoholic drink again as long as I live. I will be perfectly fine without it. Not eating ever again just puts me into another eating disorder called anorexia. So food, yeah, it's problematic. You can't give it up. I don't want anyone out there to deal with this. I don't want anyone to think that how much they achieve, how likable they are, how many people they make laugh, how good their grades are, is what makes them worthwhile as a person. The fact that you're human makes you worthwhile as a person. And it doesn't matter what the scale says. That's not what makes you worthwhile. It doesn't matter if your grades are the best. It doesn't matter if you're first chair in the band. It doesn't matter if you're first team on in your football team. It doesn't matter if you're the quarterback versus the backup quarterback. None of that matters because it doesn't define you. Because guess what? All of that changes. You're not always going to be first chair in the band. You're going to grow up. You're not always going to be the quarterback. You're going to grow up. You're not always going to look like a model at 25 because someday you're going to be 55. And, things are ever changing in the world. So if your self-worth is based on what the world says about you, then you're going to struggle like I have, and I still do. It is very difficult for me to think that I am worthwhile as a person if I'm not doing something for somebody to either entertain them, support them, help them. And don't get me wrong, those are good things. To help and support people, those are good things, but they should not come at the cost of how you value yourself. Because, and we're going to segue into religion here. If you're not a Christian, just stay with me, or I don't know, hum the Star Spangled Banner, whatever. I believe, because I am a Christian, my inherent worth is because I am made in the image of God. And I know that. I know that in here. But there's so much disordered eating and wrong thinking that I have hardwired into my crazy little mind. There are so many other mental illnesses that are trying to vie for their space in my mind, like depression and anxiety and bipolar 2, that it's hard for me to sort all that out and just see me as God sees me. I have a glimpse of that in how my husband sees me. My husband sees me, personally, I think a little too nicely. It's a good thing he's not in my head, but he sees me through the eyes of love. And I can't see me that way because I haven't yet learned to love who I am. I haven't yet learned to see me as God sees me. I'm working on it. And you're like, Terry, it's been a while. You're not exactly a spring chicken. True, I am not. But I'm also not on my deathbed, so hopefully I'll get it right. Guys, it is so important, parents, I'm talking to you now. It is so important if you see a change in your child's eating behaviors, if you see a change in your child's weight, if you see a change in your child's desperate need to be and look and achieve, it is so important that you sit down and you talk to them and you say to them, I'm a little worried about you, and I just want to know if there's anything you want to talk about, anything I can help you with. Um, you know, you it's not a phase, it's not going to go away. You need to, if you keep seeing this, then you need to get your child to a therapist, a doctor and a therapist, and so they can start working on this. If I had been able to go to a therapist when I was 18, 17, 18, I might have gotten, well, I say I would have gotten better treatment, but I really don't think I would have, because it just wasn't well known then. The treatment was not good then. It wasn't treated as a mental, well, it was treated as a mental illness. It was treated as depression, straight up. That was the only thing wrong, depression. I was put on an antidepressant, and while that probably did save my life, it did not help my bulimia at all. Now we see it in a much more holistic way. We see it as a mental disorder, a physical disorder, and an addiction, and we're able to treat it from those viewpoints. But keep an eye on your kids. Keep an eye on if they start dieting. Make sure that they're dieting in a good way, that they're getting their carbs, they're getting their fats, they're getting their, things that they need. Restricting is not dieting. One more time. Restricting is not dieting. It's starvation. So, just watch out for that. Teens, young adults. What I said is so true. It's not about how many people you make happy, or what your test grade is, or what your job position is. All of those things will be things, like I said in my writings, that you'll never reach the finish line. The finish line will be moved, and you'll keep working to try to get to the finish line. It's okay to try to want to do well in things, as long as you're doing it for a sense of accomplishment and not a sense of self-worth. Not a sense of self-worth. I wish I could go back. The other day, I saw somebody ask a question on Facebook. If you could go back to your high school self, what would you say? And I always answer, don't throw up. That would be what I would say. Just don't do it. Don't throw up. No, what I would probably say is, you do not have to be the best at everything, because that doesn't make you better or worse as a person. I wish I could internalize that now, but I'm just going to be very straight up with you and very honest with you. I haven't internalized it yet. So if you don't want to go through life fighting this battle with why you're worthwhile and everything that you put in your mouth or don't, and you don't want food to be a drug as opposed to nourishment, or even, the occasional enjoyment, then, try really hard not to go down this road. And if you feel like you're starting to go down it, talk to someone. Talk to your parents, talk to a sibling, talk to a school counselor, which might be a little hard right now, but, talk to somebody. You do not want to go down this road, because it's a really hard road to get off of. I mean, there are exits, and you take the exit, and then all of a sudden you're back on the road again. You're like, how did I even get here? So just do your best to, not do that. And you're like, okay, old lady, are you done talking to me now? I am done talking to you now. Guys, I thank you so much. If you stayed this long, this is my longest video I think I've ever done. If you stayed this long, then I really, really appreciate it. It was not a comfortable video for me to make, because I had to make a lot of admissions that I didn't want to make, because, I know that all of you thought I was perfect, right from the get-go, and now I have shattered your illusion. Kidding. But leave a comment if you have anything you want to add to the conversation down below. Subscribe if you want to hear more. I do mental health videos from time to time. I also do show and tells, and not all of them are this, actually very few of them are this serious. But if you do want to, hear more of me blathering on, then you can subscribe and you'll get more of me. And really, who doesn't want more of me? You guys take care. I love you guys. Stay safe. Take some advice from a person who's been there. This is not a rodeo you want to attend. I love you guys. Take care. Bye-bye.